A man runs through the limestone hills of Judea. His lungs are burning. The chalky white dust coats his sandals and clings to the sweat on his calves. He expects Jesus to drop his teachings, pack up his disciples, and start marching immediately toward Judea to save his closest friend. This is not the quiet weeping of a resigned rabbi. It is the fury of a creator confronting the destruction of his creation. Jesus is not just sad that his friend is dead. He is violently angry that death exists at all. We have sanitized the Jesus of John 11 into a polite, tearful companion. But the text reveals a warrior stepping onto a battlefield. Death is not a natural part of the human cycle that he simply accepts. It is a hostile invader in his Father's world. A thief that steals the breath from lungs he intricately designed in Eden. He feels the sting of the curse. He feels the weight of the fall. He weeps. Yes, but the tears are hot with a holy, terrifying anger. He walks to the face of the tomb. He orders them to move the stone. The men hesitate. The stone weighs over a ton. The friction of the rock, scraping back against the limestone, echoes over the now silent crowd. The darkness of the cave opens up. The heavy, sweet and sour odor of biological corruption spills out into the hot Judean air. Martha panics, warning him of the 4 days of decay. But Jesus ignores the warning. He stands right at the edge of the rot. He is not backing down, because he is about to open his mouth, and the voice that comes out is going to tear the fabric of reality in half. But Jesus stays seated. He does not panic. He does not rush. He stays exactly where he is for 2 entire days. If you have ever sat in the sterile quiet of a hospital waiting room, listening to the low hum of the fluorescent lights, you already know the terror of the 4th day. You know what it feels like to watch the clock run out while heaven stays completely silent. We send our own runners constantly. You send up the desperate prayer in the middle of the night, staring at the glowing screen of your phone as you check a bank balance that is going to break you. You whisper it in the cold stillness of a living room where a marriage has slowly bled to death over a decade. Lord, the one you love is hurting. Lord, the situation is critical. And then you wait. Day 1 passes, and the situation degrades. Day 2 arrives, and the sickness deepens. The papers are served. The final rejection email lands in your inbox. You watch the theology you learned in church collide violently with the brutal, undeniable reality of an unanswered prayer. We want a paramedic God. We want a deity who hears the alarm, dispatches the ambulance, and arrives with lights flashing to stabilize the crisis before it flatlines. We want him to patch the relationship, fund the account, and cure the illness before the heavy stone is rolled across our lives. And while he waits, Lazarus dies. Most people read this story and assume the delay is a tragedy of geography. When he does not show up on our emergency timeline, our minds do exactly what Martha's mind did on the dirt road outside Bethany. We run the autopsy of our own hope. We assume that if he actually cared, he would have moved immediately. But John chapter 11 forces us to look at the terrifying stillness of God through an entirely different lens. He is not a divine paramedic rushing to stop the bleeding. He is the architect of a new creation. Sometimes, he lets the old structure completely collapse before he speaks. His silence in your life right now is not evidence of his absence, or a symptom of his indifference. It is the heavy, agonizing weight of his meno. He is abiding in the delay. He is allowing the situation to reach its absolute, biological, and theological end. He is letting the stone roll across the entrance of your expectation, not to mock your faith, but to ensure that when the deliverance finally comes, you know it was not a medical anomaly, a stroke of luck, or a clever human strategy. He waits for the 4th day because resurrection requires a corpse. He lets the situation die so that he can kill the death that is killing you. Jesus was simply too far away to make it in time. Or, if they read it as intentional, they assume it was a test. But the agonizing weight of the 4th day is never the end of the narrative, because the silence of God only lasts until he arrives, at the edge of the rot. And when he finally opens his mouth, he does not whisper. The stone is gone. The midday sun cuts into the limestone cave. The stench of 4-day decay hits the crowd. People cover their faces. Mary and Martha hold their breath. The silence in the graveyard is absolute. Jesus looks into the pitch black. He prays a brief prayer of gratitude, and then he speaks to the corpse. John chapter 11, verse 43 records the moment. The English translations usually say, "He cried out with a loud voice." It sounds projected. It sounds like a trained public speaker at the edge of a stage. But the Greek word John chooses is kraugazo. It is not a polished, dignified yell. It is a harsh, guttural scream. The root of the word historically mimics the croak of a raven. It is a raw, tearing sound pulled from the very bottom of the lungs. It is the sound of absolute authority stripped of all religious decorum. John uses this specific verb only a few times in his entire gospel. You find it again in chapter 19. Jesus is standing bleeding on the pavement in Pilate's courtyard. The mob is looking at him, and they scream, "Crucify him!" They kraugazo, a cruel little theological exam designed to stretch Mary and Martha to their absolute breaking point. Just to teach them a lesson about patience. The mob uses the scream to demand a death. Jesus uses the scream to demand a life. He is not politely asking his friend to wake up. He is violently ordering the grave to release its hostage. "Lazarus, come out." The words hit the back of the cave. They echo off the limestone walls. The crowd stares into the black void. 1 second passes. 2 seconds. The hot wind blows through the valley. The professional mourners are completely silent. The religious leaders hold their breath. The tension is unendurable. And then, they hear it. A shuffling sound in the dark. The soft scrape of a foot against the stone floor. A figure appears in the entrance of the cave. He is wrapped from head to toe in dirty strips of linen. A burial cloth covers his face. The grave spices cling to his body. He is standing in the blinding light. His lungs are pulling in the hot Judean air. His heart is pushing blood back through his veins. The 4th day is broken. The theology of permanent decay is shattered. The impossible has walked out into the daylight, but the miracle is not actually finished, because the man standing in the sun is breathing. But he is not completely free. The man in the entrance is alive, but he cannot move. He is tightly wrapped in strips of linen. We are conditioned to read the story of Lazarus as a gentle reminder that God just works on his own timetable. The spices and resins used in Jewish burial, a heavy mixture of myrrh and aloes, act almost like a glue, hardening around the fabric in the heat of the tomb to create a stiff cocoon. His arms are pinned to his sides. His legs are bound together. The cloth over his face obscures his eyes. He has the breath of life in his lungs, but he is still wearing the uniform of the dead. Jesus has just shattered the biological reality of death with a single guttural scream. You would expect the same divine authority to instantly dissolve the linen strips. He could have spoken a second word and commanded the grave clothes to fall away. But he doesn't. Instead, Jesus looks at the stunned crowd, at Mary, at Martha, at the disciples who had been trembling just hours before, and he gives them a direct command: unbind him and let him go. This is not a minor logistical detail John decided to include. It is the blueprint for how resurrection actually operates in the human experience. The voice of God wakes the dead, but the hands of the community unbind the grave clothes. When God calls someone out of a tomb, when he resurrects a dead marriage, or pulls a friend out of the dark cave of addiction, or brings someone back from a catastrophic failure. But if you look closer at the highly unusual Greek words John uses to describe this moment, at the terrifying historical reality, they do not emerge pristine. They come out breathing, but they come out wrapped in the sticky, foul-smelling residue of where they have been. They are alive, but they are still carrying the weight of the grave. Jesus does not miraculously sanitize the aftermath. He hands the messy, intimate work of unbinding over to us. Imagine the hesitation in that graveyard. Someone had to step forward. Someone had to reach out and physically touch the cloth that had been marinating in a tomb for 4 days. They had to peel the sticky linen off his face, unravel the strips from his wrists, and pull the heavy burial shroud from his shoulders. They had to actively participate in the liberation of a man they had just buried. The delay of the fourth day wasn't just designed to prove the authority of Christ over death. It was designed to force a community to stop mourning a corpse and start unbinding a brother. The miracle is not finished in the cave. It is finished in the hands of the people who love him. But this profound moment in Bethany is not the end of the narrative, because the echoes of that 4-day wait, that guttural scream, and those discarded burial clothes do not stop at the edge of Lazarus's tomb. Of a first-century tomb, you start to see something that the test of patience reading completely misses. The delay is not a symptom of his indifference. They point directly toward another cave, another heavy stone, and a timeline that changes the fabric of the universe forever. A messenger runs 20 miles through Judean dust, and the rabbi stays seated. The 2 days of waiting stretch into agonizing silence, and heaven anchors in the delay. A sister runs out to the road with a shattered expectation, and resurrection is pulled violently into her present. The fourth day brings the absolute biological end, and the stage is set for an undeniable victory. The creator of the universe stands before a sealed cave, and he snorts with the furious anger of a warrior. A guttural scream tears through the darkness, and a dead man breathes the hot air. The community peels away the foul-smelling linen, and the liberation of a brother is finally complete. One deliberate delay, one ultimate deliverance. But here is the part I keep coming back to. It is the image of Jesus on the other side of the Jordan River. Not the Jesus standing victoriously outside the tomb, but the Jesus sitting quietly in Perea, feeling the dry wind, knowing exactly what Mary and Martha were suffering, knowing the pain the delay was causing, knowing the heavy stone was being rolled across the entrance, and choosing to let it happen anyway. The silence was not an accident. It was the prerequisite for the miracle. If you are in a season where the clock has run out, it is the weapon he uses to break the spine of death. The real question of John chapter 11 isn't, can Jesus raise the dead? You know the terror of the fourth day? If you are standing in the graveyard of a shattered expectation, a failed business, a broken body, a marriage that looks utterly beyond repair, and you are wondering why the God you love did not respond to your desperate runner in time, do not mistake his silence for his absence. He is not ignoring you. He is Meno. He is abiding in the wait. He has let the situation pass the point of a quick human fix. Not because he has abandoned you, but because he is preparing to speak. A word that no medical anomaly, no lucky break, and no human ingenuity can take credit for. He is waiting for the corpse. And may the God who has never once been late, even when he waits for the terrifying finality of the fourth day, walk with you into the dark places of your deepest grief and speak a word that shatters the stone. If this opens something in you, subscribe and leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who is waiting in the agonizing silence of day 3. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. The question is this: why does a God who loves you deliberately let you hit rock bottom? He is not carrying a royal decree. He is not delivering news of an invading army. He is carrying a single, desperate message. To find the answer, you have to start with a single, deeply uncomfortable sentence in the original text. A sentence where the grammar itself seems to contradict everything we know about the compassion of Christ. John is writing this narrative decades after the fact. You can almost hear the scratch of his reed pen against the rough papyrus, as he constructs a theological collision course in just 2 sentences. We find it in John chapter 11, verses 5 and 6. If you read it closely, it feels like a grammatical error. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. That is, verse 5. A clear, undisputed declaration of deep affection. Then verse 6 arrives, and it begins with a conjunction that feels like a betrayal. So, when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. So, therefore, consequently, because he loved them, he stayed away. The grammar itself forces a paradox onto the page. We expect the sentence to say, Jesus loved them, Therefore he rushed to their side. But John connects the immense love of God directly to the excruciating delay of God. The word your English Bible translates as stayed in this verse is the Greek verb meno, from two sisters in a village called Bethany. Back in that village, in a small stone house, Mary and Martha are watching their brother Lazarus slip away. It is one of John's absolute favorite words in the New Testament. It appears in his writings over 40 times, and its range of meaning is profoundly intimate. The primary root of meno is to abide, to remain, to dwell deeply in a specific place or state of being. It is the exact same word Jesus uses on the night before his crucifixion in John chapter 15, when he looks at his terrified friends and says, "Abide in me, and I in you." Eius meno. He is not asking them to merely wait around. He is inviting them into a rooted, unshakable presence. That connection changes everything about how we read the delay. Across the Jordan River, when the text says, Jesus meno abided, remained, rooted himself where he was for 2 days, it is revealing the posture of heaven in the middle of our waiting. He is not pacing nervously. He is not distracted by other ministry opportunities. The silence from heaven is not a symptom of absence. It is an intentional, heavy presence. Jesus stays planted in Perea while the blazing Judean sun rises and sets twice over the limestone hills. He feels the dry wind coming off the desert, knowing exactly what is happening in that small stone house in Bethany. He knows the shallow breathing has finally stopped. The sickness has taken over. You can hear his shallow, rattling breathing in the dim room. You can feel the fever heat radiating from his skin. He knows the professional mourners have been hired. He knows the heavy stone has been rolled across the entrance of the tomb. He knows the sisters are sitting in the dark, wondering why the rabbi who heals strangers let his best friend die. But Jesus also knows that showing up on day 1 or day 2 would only result in a medical miracle. He is not aiming for a medical miracle. He is aiming for a total dismantling of death itself. And to do that, he has to let the clock run out completely. He has to wait for the 4th day. Jesus finally moves. He crosses the Jordan River. The climb up the Jericho road is steep. The sun beats down on the white limestone. The disciples trail behind him. They are terrified. The religious leaders in Judea have already picked up stones to kill him once. Going back feels like a death sentence. Thomas speaks up. He tells the others they might as well go and die with him. The tension is thick. The dust rises under their sandals. But Jesus does not hesitate. He walks toward the danger. He walks toward the grief. He arrives on the outskirts of Bethany. You can hear the sorrow before you see the village. The sound of professional mourners. The sisters know the clock is running out. But they also know a rabbi who touches blind eyes, and they open. The shrill wail of bone flutes. The rhythmic beating of chests. The air smells of sweat, dust, and myrrh. The house is crowded. The village is suffocating in loss. Martha hears he is coming. She does not wait. She drops what she is doing. She runs down the dirt path outside the village limits. She meets the rabbi in the open heat. She does not offer a traditional greeting. She does not offer a blessing of peace. She offers a piercing accusation. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." It is the cry of a shattered world. It is the raw, unfiltered anger of a sister who watched the clock run out while the healer stayed away. Her words are not a theological question. They are an autopsy of hope. She knows he could have stopped the fever. She has seen the crippled walk away carrying their mats. She knows his power perfectly. What she cannot understand is his timing. The delay makes no sense. The absence feels like abandonment. Jesus looks at her. He promises a resurrection. Martha agrees. But she pushes it to the end of time, the distant future, the great theological someday. Jesus refuses to leave it there. He pulls the future violently into the present. "I am the resurrection and the life," who speaks to storms and they shatter into silence. So they send a runner. When the messenger finally reaches Jesus, back in the house, Mary stays seated. It is the posture of absolute defeat. Her grief anchors her to the cold stone floor. It takes a direct call from Jesus to finally pull her out of the dark room. She walks out to the road. She falls in the dirt at his feet. The dust clings to her tears. She looks up at the rabbi she hosted in her home, the rabbi who let her brother die. And she delivers the exact same devastating sentence. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Two sisters. One shattered expectation. They both know the timeline. They know Lazarus has been in the tomb for exactly 4 days. To a modern reader, 4 days is just a measure of time. But to a first-century Jew standing in a Judean graveyard, the fourth day means something entirely different. The fourth day is a terrifying theological boundary line. The detail that changes everything about this narrative is hiding in ancient rabbinic literature. In the first century, Jewish burial customs were devastatingly swift. The climate in the Middle East is unforgiving. So, a body was typically washed, wrapped tightly in linen strips, infused with aromatic spices, and placed inside a carved limestone cave on the exact same day the person died. There was no embalming. He is in Perea, roughly 20 miles away across the Jordan River. It is a strenuous, but entirely walkable, one-day journey. The relentless heat of the Judean sun dictated a rapid return to the earth. But alongside the physical reality of burial, there was a deeply ingrained cultural belief about the spirit. You can find echoes of it in later Talmudic and Midrashic writings, reflecting a tradition that permeated the first-century mindset. The ancient rabbis taught that when a person died, their soul hovered over the physical body for exactly 3 days. For 3 days, the soul lingered in the suffocating dark of the tomb, seeking an opportunity to re-enter the flesh, hoping against hope that breath might return to the lungs. It was a 3-day window of suspended grief, where a miraculous resuscitation still felt theoretically possible. But on the 4th day, the biological reality of decomposition became undeniable. The color drained from the skin. The face began to cave in. The flesh physically broke down. And according to tradition, once this corruption of the body began, the soul finally recognized the absolute irreversibility of death and departed forever. On the 4th day, the window permanently closed. The grave was sealed, not just with a heavy stone disc, but with theological finality. If seeing how this ancient context unlocks, the text is stirring up questions you've never considered, you're exactly who this channel is for. The runner delivers the message. It is brief. It contains no formal request. Just a statement of reality that trusts the relationship to do the heavy lifting. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So Jesus arrives on the exact day when hope is both biologically and theologically exhausted. If he had arrived on day 2, or even day 3, and commanded Lazarus to wake up, the skeptics in Jerusalem would have had a built-in defense mechanism. They would have claimed it was a near-death experience, a deep coma, a swoon that had naturally resolved itself while the soul was still hovering nearby. The miracle would have been explained away as a rare medical anomaly rather than a divine victory. Jesus knows the theology of the men who are watching his every move. He knows exactly what is required to shatter their religious paradigms. The 4 days were not a failure of his compassion. They were the necessary staging ground for an undeniable resurrection. He waited until the heavy stone was rolled across the entrance, until the pungent smell of death had saturated the cave, until Mary and Martha had settled into the awful permanence of their loss. He deliberately pushed the situation past the furthest limits of human possibility so that the absolute authority of God would be the only remaining explanation. The historical context completely explains his timing, but it does not explain his emotional reaction. Because when Jesus finally walks to the edge of that tomb, "Lord, he whom you love is ill," the messenger stands there, chest heaving in the afternoon heat. He expects the rabbi to stand up, surrounded by weeping sisters and wailing crowds. The original Greek text reveals something deeply unsettling. The rabbi is not just grieving. He is violently angry. Jesus walks toward the limestone cave. The crowd parts. The wailing of the hired mourners echoes off the rocky walls. A chaotic and desperate wall of sound. The air is heavy with heat and the sharp, medicinal sting of myrrh. He sees Mary still weeping in the dirt. He sees the heavy, circular stone sitting in its groove, sealing the entrance. It is here, standing in front of the cold rock, that John gives us a description of Jesus' internal state. If you read it in a standard English translation, it sounds remarkably restrained. John Elf. Verse 33 says that when Jesus saw her weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. It sounds like a deep sigh. It sounds like a gentle, pastoral sorrow. But the word John actually wrote in Greek is embrimomai. It does not mean a quiet, dignified sadness. It is a word of visceral, physical fury. The root of embrimomai literally describes the snorting of a warhorse preparing to charge into a violent clash. It is the flare of nostrils, the shuddering of muscles, the guttural sound of an animal bracing for impact. When Jesus stands before the grave of his friend, he is snorting with rage. He looks at the weeping sisters. He looks at the hired mourners. He looks at the heavy stone keeping the darkness in.